We just went to the Cinerama Dome on an idle afternoon. I think it was 2 o'clock, and Danny Boyle's Sunshine was playing. My wife and I sat down in the movie theater. As far as I could tell, we were the only people in the theater, which is very unusual at that theater at that time. And the people in the theater were me, my wife Eileen, and Drew Barrymore.
Welcome to the American Cinematheque podcast, the show where guests program the film festival of their lives. Joining us today is a writer, film critic, and podcaster. He's the head of content at The Ringer and the host of The Big Picture. Programming the Sean Fennessey Film Festival, it's Sean Fennessey.
Thank you so much. What a delight.
Welcome to the show. I think the best way to get to know someone is finding out what their movie theater ritual is. When you go to the movies, what you do beforehand, where you sit, is there anything that you do?
Oh, yeah. Okay. Good question. Always sit left aisle, usually mid-back. I've got long legs, and so I need to be able to stretch out. I'm a hardcore candy guy, candy consumer, Sour Patch Kids, Twizzlers.
Do you, when you get a Twizzler, ever use it as a straw with the Coca-Cola?
Can't do that. I would do it with a Red Vine.
You would?
I feel like a Red Vine has more open space. There's more hollowness to a Red Vine, so I will get into that. Candy, not a popcorn person, not really a soda person.
Wow.
If there's a beer on draft, love to have a beer in the movie theater occasionally. That's really it. I like to watch the trailers, no matter where I am, rep or new release. And yeah, that's
How early do you like to arrive? If you're going to get there for the trailers, are you one of the first people to arrive?
25 minutes or so. I need that aisle seat.
Yeah.
If I don't get that aisle seat, I'm going to be off to a really bad
and
start.
then you may need, like at the Vista, you're good because there's lots of leg room.
Yes.
So you're eyeing the spots where there may be.
Yes, but New Bev, a little more challenging. Egyptian, a little more challenging leg-wise, right? So I think usually about 20 minutes. Now, if it's a work screening, because I go to a lot of pre-release screenings, that's just more of a crapshoot. But if you don't show up on time, you're effed. You might not be able to get a seat. So I like to get there early.
And so you go on the left. I go on the right because I think I have a natural curve of my spine.
Sure.
So I'm kind of looking this way. Is there a reason you sit on the left, or is it just?
I don't know. That's a really good question. I think I'm right-handed, so it's got nothing to do with that. I hadn't even thought about specifically the perspective. It's a gut move that I make. I do have a curved spine as well, but it's mostly just from like leaning forward watching movies for the last 45 years. But I don't know. It's just instinctual.
Do you remember the first time you went and saw a movie, and where did you grow up?
Sure. I grew up in a town called Huntington Station on Long Island, which is sort of like a small enclave in a much bigger town called Huntington, which is a classical Long Island suburb. My parents were both civil servants. They loved to go to the movies, and we had a single movie theater called the Walt Whitman Movie Theater, attached to the Walt Whitman Mall. And the Whitman Theater was notable because it's one of the very first mall-attached movie theaters in American history. Wow. It opened in 1963, and so we went there all the time as kids. And eventually, I started walking there. It was within 8-minute walk of my house, so I got addicted very early on to going to the movies. On top of that, there is an art house movie theater that is still open called the Cinema Arts Center in Huntington, which is one of the very best art houses in America and has been going for years and years. And my mom was a real cineast, and she started taking me there when I was about 11, 12.
Wow.
So I had, in addition to regular suburban multiplexes, a plethora of options.
So you had the best of both worlds
I
at
did.
that point. There must have been some raucous Dead Poet Society screenings at the Walt Whitman.
Truly. It was called Walt Whitman because Huntington is the birthplace of Walt Whitman.
Oh.
So everything is named after Walt Whitman there, including my high school, including a local park. Like we were very leaves of grass pilled in Huntington.
And so do you remember the first film you saw?
I can't remember the first time I walked into a movie theater. I was racking my brain to prepare for this, for what the first thing I saw was. I saw all of the Disney animated classics as a young person, and my youth matched up pretty neatly with the relaunch of the kind of second Disney golden age of The Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin, The Lion King. I know I saw all of those films in theaters. I have very vivid memories of seeing that stretch of 80s and 90s Mel Brooks movies. My dad was a big Mel Brooks fan. So even though that wasn't necessarily the most hallowed period for him, like I had a birthday party with Robin Hood
Men in Tights.
and Men in Tights, yes.
Yeah,
which was an amazing night. So yeah, I can't, but my first movie memory is Wizard of Oz, but that had to have been at home.
Wow, a birthday party of Robin Hood Men in Tights.
Yeah, it was me and 12 boys.
Oh my God.
It was great. We were the Men in Tights. Yeah, it was so fun.
That must have been just perfect.
It was great.
All right, let's get to why we are here. Behind you is a marquee with 8 showtimes. You're going to program the Sean Fennessey Film Festival out of your own personal movie-going experiences.
Okay.
Nothing is locked in until the end, so feel free to move things around as we go, and there are no rules.
Okay.
Is there anything you'd like to play on the board immediately, or is there any of these early family matinees that strike you?
What is everyone? They must open with opening night, right? That has to be the place to start.
You never know where they're going to go.
I'm inclined to do that.
Okay.
Okay. I'll start with opening night. I'll choose Once Upon a Time in the West, which is a movie that I saw as a teenager at a repertory screening at the Cinema Arts Center, the Sergio Leone film.
Yeah.
And it was at a time when I was being introduced to, I guess what you would call foreign film, but genre movies. And so as a 14, 15, 16-year-old, I had an older friend who was really into spaghetti westerns and giallo. And if I had not made friends with this person, I'm probably not sitting here with you today. His name was Ben, and Ben was a frequenter of art houses, and he loved to buy Anchor Bay clamshell VHSs, and he loved to, he kind of showed me a lot about how things work. I'm one of 4, but I'm the oldest, so I didn't have a person when I was younger guiding my hand other than my mom. And seeing Once Upon a Time in the West on the big screen.
And what year would this have been?
It must have been about 1997.
Wow.
I'm trying to think, would that have been the 30th anniversary of the movie? I can't remember is it 67?
67. Yeah, it would
Sounds
have been.
right,
Yeah,
right?
It sounds right.
Maybe 69. Anyhow, it might have been an anniversary screening of the film. It's on 35 millimeter, and just cooked my noodle.
Yeah.
I mean, I had never seen anything like that. I had never considered anything like that. I had not seen the Dollars trilogy at that point. I didn't really know Leone's work very well at all. And the scope, and also that sort of like emotional confusion when a movie is dubbed and also in English at the same time. And just being a teenager and not really knowing what that is, or that you could or should do that, and why those decisions were made, was kind of an out-of-body experience and trying to understand the movie, in addition to, the score being so breathtaking and the way the score is kind of integrated into the story with harmonica.
Yeah.
It's just an amazing, thrilling movie. And it's a movie that anytime you show it to somebody for the first time, they're just like, wow, holy shit. And I think it has that power. And I think you'd want to kind of kick off an experience like this.
It's such a great movie. It has a captivating fly.
Yeah. Yes. Truly. Yes. That follows us around.
And so was Ben with you at this, or did he inspire your friend?
Yeah, we saw it together. And he had seen it, I'm sure, but he was one of those kids who I think located kids who like kind of needed to have their culture like amped up a little bit, and he was pretty particular about it. But I think he just saw that I was very open-minded. I watched Suspiria and Deep Red with him before this, and those were pretty transformative. Those were both VHS, like in the basement watches.
Yeah.
But I think when he saw that I was really into Deep Red, that was the movie that I liked the most that he had shown me. He was like, you're going to be able to do a lot here now and get away with a lot.
All right. We're playing it up on the board. Once Upon a Time in the West.
Great.
There it is. So there you are. You're in Long Island. You go to the Whitman. You go to this rep. This was at the Rep Theater. Was there anything at the Whitman that really made a strong impact on you?
Yeah, so I was born in 1982, so that is right in the heart of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles mania.
Oh, yeah.
I was 8 years old when the TMNT film came out, and saw it with friends, 4 friends, and 1 parent, and we thought we were the Ninja Turtles, of course. And the 1990 Ninja Turtles movie, which was a big hit, and I think, critically, I don't really remember what the reception of it was. I wasn't really reading Newsday or the New York Times at that point to figure out what the critics thought of it.
Yeah.
But when you go back and look at it, it's like a really, really well-crafted, kind of a ninja movie, kind of a crime movie, kind of a friendship movie. It's got great guys in rubber suits action going on. It's a very odd film, but it is edited by Sally Menke, Quentin Tarantino's longtime editor, legendary film editor, who passed away far too young. And when you watch the movie, you can see that there's like a slickness in it that you don't find in a lot of those like late 80s, early 90s. This is just for kids, whatever, it doesn't really matter. There's a darkness to it. There's some real style. And I remember vividly going to see it. I saw The Secret of the Ooze as well in movie theaters. But that first movie stuck with me. And, I have a 4.5-year-old, and she's really into Star Wars. She's really into Godzilla. And I tried with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and I think if it were a cartoon, she would have been about it.
Yeah.
But she couldn't get into it, so I feel like me being 8 is notable to me, and that was just like a fun movie to see with a bunch of kids and families. So,
it might be. Joe Posnancy says baseball was perfect for a 10-year-old. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, 8-year-old might be the perfect age.
I think so, right? I mean, how old are the turtles? Are they supposed to be? I mean, they're 14, 15?
13, 14, 15. Yeah,
teenagers.
It must be 14,
so there's something
15.
about like the older kid, the older turtle that you get interested in.
Yeah,
like
you know you will one day be that.
Exactly.
Wow. And so when you went to this screening, were you with other kids?
Yeah, it was me and 3 other friends, and it was a madhouse of young boys. Some young girls, but mostly young boys, just kind of losing their minds. And also, like, pizza is the most important currency in the universe when you're 8 years old. Like, it matters more than anything. So the idea of characters kind of surrounding themselves, building their lives around that was always very funny.
And it was pre-Jurassic Park, so it was Henson's suits, right?
Yes.
And how was that? I thought they looked amazing at the time.
When I looked at it earlier this year, I still thought it looked pretty good given its time period. And speaking of Jurassic Park, like there are a couple of examples of really good, like Pumpkinhead and Stan Winston, what he does with that looks kind of good, but there's not a lot of guy in suit movies that actually play. Right. And this is 5 different suits, 6 different suits if you include Splinter. So yeah, it kind of held up.
You're a kid like K-pop Demon Hunters, because it kind of seemed like
same, and that's very much the same energy.
Yeah,
of
there we go.
The heroes with swords, with a lot of choreographed dance moves, and just like a spirit of camaraderie. I think that's a really like a smart thing that is baked into a lot of those movies. Is they're all team up movies, and they're all people who are like, I got your back no matter what, which is something that little kids really emotionally connect to. Is that they want to be a part of something. Yeah. So I never thought about it that way when I was 8 or 18 or 28. But when you have a kid, you start to see the ways in which something hit for you and why and how it's connecting with your own child.
Great. We're going to put it up on the board.
Great.
It's in Family Matinee?
Family Matinee.
Family Matinee, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. So we've got 2 slots on the board. We've got Once Upon a Time in the West and TMNT. Do you remember when you were going to the theaters and first time you realized that like a person makes these movies? There's people behind it.
Yes, I think it's probably Pulp Fiction because there were so many structural and aesthetic decisions in the movie that didn't feel like any other movie.
Yeah.
My friend Chris has pointed this out many times, but there's a moment in the opening title credits of Pulp Fiction where we're listening to a song, and then you can hear the radio dial being changed, and mid-credits, it changes to another song. And you haven't seen a radio, you haven't seen a car, you haven't seen a character. You've just been watching these credits, and it starts with Dick Dale and the Miserlou, and then it pivots to Jungle Boogie. And you're like, what just happened? And I was 12 when the movie came out. And there was a lot of pre-release hype, and I had seen Reservoir Dogs. As a young person, I was getting, 11-year-old kind of Reservoir Dogs pilled. And I think authorial intent is like a concept that hit me, which is like, this person is making choices. The person who put this together, who had the idea for this. And, it's so outrageous. And to be so young and to be so exposed to such an intense kind of a movie, a violent movie, a sexual movie, but also like very romantic and sincere in some ways too. I think it probably had me thinking about what went into it. Because when you're a kid, and we're talking a lot about seeing movies as a kid, you really only think about story. What has to happen for these characters to be okay?
Yeah.
And as you get older and you think about decisions that artists are making, or you think about a choice that an actor makes, or the way in which something sounds, or even something that took a long time for me to understand, but like how the camera is moving and what it's like to be on a set. I didn't know anybody who worked in Hollywood. I had really no exposure to this world. I had magazines. I had, reading Premiere and Entertainment Weekly and talking to my friend Ben. But you kind of have to like unpack that for yourself if you don't have somebody in your life who tells you what it means that there's like multiple people holding lights on a set while actors are performing. And what does a director do? And what does it mean to stick to the screenplay or to go off book, or all of these things that we kind of just take for granted now as lifetime movie obsessives. And so that's a movie that there are so many things in it, and it took the world so by storm, I think because of the same feeling that it gave me at 12.
Yeah.
It's like, whoa, we've not seen something quite like this. And then as you get older, and you look at all of the movies that influenced that movie and all the things that Quentin borrowed and stole and recombined to give us that feeling, it actually is like an amazing testimony, I think, to what a filmmaker can do and maybe even should do if they've spent their whole life watching movies. So that's one that really turned the lights on for me.
Yeah, at that time, it was like the grunge of movies, like Nirvana of movies, where he was on MTV, he was talking about it. It felt very new.
Yes.
At that time.
And his pursuit of celebrity, I think, was really smart on his behalf. And I think the media was very hungry for an avatar of a new cinema. They found it in him, somebody who was loquacious and had a lot of stories and was, like a movie Bible. I mean, so many of the cult movies that I got interested in as I got older were just because I heard him talk about, Wong Kar-wai or talking about Caged Heat or like stuff that, I remember he famously pushed the Roger Vadim Rock Hudson movie, Pretty Little Maids All in a Row.
Yes.
And he was like, that's my 9th favorite movie of all time. And I was like, what the fuck is that?
Right.
Like, where you can't even get this movie at the video store. So I think that that's another way that like showing that authorial intent was sort of like my taste goes into the movies that I make in a very overt way, as opposed to like a slightly classier 80s or 90s filmmaker like a Ron Howard or a Rob Reiner, where it was like, this is a Hollywood professional, or even a Steven Spielberg, where he could say he loves John Ford, but it wasn't easy for me to watch 14 John Ford movies. But for Tarantino to be like, this Kung Fu movie is everything to me.
Go see Switchblade Sisters.
Just watch it, and then you'll understand my point of view, was very powerful and also very enticing, I think, to a teenager.
And then you've come to the Cinematheque many times, and you've been our friend of the fest, but you also did Inglourious Bastards.
Yes, we did.
And do you want to talk a little bit about that and your relationship?
Yeah, and maybe that should be the double feature, right? Maybe Pulp and Inglourious, since those probably are my two favorite Quentin films. We did a project on our show called 25 for 25, where we picked 25 movies from the century that we loved so far. And the idea was one film per filmmaker. And so we could only choose one Tarantino movie. Tarantino, definitely one of the directors of my lifetime, and somebody I've been really lucky to get to know a little bit and spend some time with. And his movies in the 21st century are fascinating to me, and in some ways I think very different from those 90s movies. But Inglourious was one that just gave me that kinetic the hairs on your arms standing up the first time I watched it, even from like a movie I really anticipated. And I'm sure you know that feeling, right? When you're like so excited for a new film from a filmmaker you really care about, and it exceeds your expectation, which is so rare. And that's a movie that is really big and bold and really threads the needle between a dramatic and compelling classical historical war story with revisionist history and redefining how you should feel about something that happened. And also working in plenty of those Switchblade Sisters-esque, notes of exploitation movie and, again, going back to Italy, like a lot of the Italian World War II war films the Enzo Castellari movies that he likes. So there's a lot to chew on once you get beneath the surface, but even just on the surface, it's just a crowd pleaser. It's just, and when we showed it that night at the Egyptian, people loved it. I mean, it's been 17 years since that movie came out. It still plays so well.
Do you want to play any of these on the board, or?
I think Pulp and Inglourious is probably a good idea for me. I mean, all of Quentin's movies matter to me, but I think that those are two good ones because I think they represent the two tracks of sort of like contemporary crime film, which he mastered, and the sort of historical revision using genre to explore his interests. And two movies I could just watch.
And we're in Los Angeles. Have you gone to the Bev to see these or the Vista? Have you ever seen them?
I'm so old now, so I can't do the Midnights anymore. I did do New Bev Midnights when I was a younger man with no children. Yeah,
that's the thing. He has his calendar, but his films normally are at the Midnights.
They're usually at the Midnights. If they do an earlier day screening, I think I did Hateful Eight at a 7:30 screening a few years ago, but I can't do the Midnights anymore, unfortunately for me.
So this is the double feature?
Double feature.
We got Pulp Fiction and Inglourious Bastards. So up on the board is Once Upon a Time in the West, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Pulp Fiction, and Inglourious Bastards. You interviewed a great man by the name of Mr. Steven Spielberg.
I did.
And he was talking about the theatrical experience. So I would like to know, what do you think makes such a great theatrical experience, and what did you maybe learn from his thoughts?
I think we agree. I assume you agree too, that he framed it in an interesting way, which is that you go into this room with a lot of people that you don't know. And you all come out kind of having changed, but experiencing something together. And I watch plenty of movies at home, and I have a large physical media collection, and I'm very interested in that. But I resonated with that idea that he shared, which is that movies just feel better. They feel bigger and different, and like a different art form when they're consumed with strangers. Loved ones is nice too when you're there with people you care about, but I also go to the movies alone a lot. And I don't need to have a 2-hour conversation with somebody to know how they felt at a movie. A lot of times you can just turn around and look back at them and see awe or boredom or tears or laughter. And, I think we're increasingly a very enclosed society, a society of people who have their AirPods in and are looking at their phones or not even leaving their house. And going to the movies breaks that habit. It gets you involved in the world. And it doesn't mean that you have to spend those hours necessarily interacting with somebody that you don't know or don't want to talk to, but it does make you a part of something communally. And if you have a conversation in the lobby, great. I mean, one of the cineplexes I go to all the time is the AMC Burbank 16. There's a ton of pre-screenings there. It's also a very local theater for me. And there's clearly a contingent of people who listen to my podcast who are there all the time. So if I go to a movie there, I just have to bank on having a 10-minute conversation with somebody after I've seen the movie, which is actually kind of nice.
Yeah.
It kind of pulls me out of my enclosedness, my like social tightness, because people are just like, what'd you think?
Yeah.
And then you got to tell them. And then it's only right to be like, well, what did you think? Why did you like it or not like it? And that's really powerful. It's very different from just like, okay, you sat at home, you watched your Blu-ray or you fired something up on a streaming service and then you logged in on Letterboxd and then you went to bed. There's nothing emotional or social about that. That's a very, it's intimate, but it's small. And going to the movie theater makes a movie feel bigger. Aside from it looking bigger, it actually feels bigger emotionally to me.
Yeah, we can't turn it off. We all made the choice together. We're doing it.
Yes. And also to be quiet and to forget about not taking out your phone. That kind of goes without saying. To pay attention to something even if you're not with it. I think as people increasingly don't read as well, this is a challenge that we have culturally where we think we're allowed to just not do anything we don't want to do ever. And with movies, like a movie is not a perfect object. It's a subjective piece of art, even if you've paid money for it. And sometimes if there's a sequence in a movie that you don't like, it's your right to say that you don't like it. But to have to sit through it, I think does have some power. Like you might learn something if you get to the other side of something that doesn't make you totally comfortable. And I like, as somebody who likes really kind of nasty, cynical movies too, I kind of like that. Of like, you're going to endure this together with us.
That's great. Is there a screening that you remember that you would like to relive again, or something that was just the pinnacle of that?
Well, there's one that's intertwined with my relationship to LA. In 2007, I think this was on the same trip. I lived in New York. I'm from New York. I spent the first 12 years of my adult life in New York. And I moved out here in 2012. But in 2007, I took a trip out here with my wife. And earlier that year, I think I had come out to cover the premiere of Transformers, Michael Bay's Transformers, which was very funny. I later profiled Michael Bay. We can talk about that if you want to. We just went to the Cinerama Dome on an idle afternoon. And I think it was 2 o'clock and Danny Boyle's Sunshine was playing. I hadn't seen it. I really like Danny Boyle's movies. And my wife and I sat down in the movie theater. And as far as I could tell, we were the only people in the theater, which is very unusual at that theater at that time. And the people in the theater were me, my wife Eileen, and Drew Barrymore. And Drew Barrymore was just checking out Sunshine on a midday afternoon. I was completely blown away by the movie. I still love that movie. I think the ending is like a mess, and I don't care. I very rarely am as forgiving of a movie, or I feel like they kind of bungled the third act, but the first 2 acts are so moving and beautiful and grand. And I'm trying to figure out like where it would make sense here. But at the completion of that screening, I did have that very hokey, almost Spielbergian feeling of like LA is where dreams are. Because not only did I see a movie that moved me in a legendary movie theater, but I was like, I'm sitting with a famous person. And I didn't know any famous people. And I didn't, it was just like a magazine editor living in New York. And we didn't talk. I didn't approach her. I didn't want to bother her. It was more just like, this is how it works here. You might just run into someone at the grocery store. You might just run into somebody at the movie theater.
It's a little Sesame Street.
It was. It is. and you might meet Elmo if you're lucky. And for whatever reason, that clicked in my head. And I had been telling my wife before that I always wanted to live in LA, and she knew that. And we eventually did get to move here. But I always go back to that afternoon as like a little bit of a hinge point of like, I got to get back to the ArcLight. I got to get back to, this world of movie culture somehow in my life. And I think if the movie was not good, like if I had seen something from 2007 that I don't like, I might have had a different feeling. But I like that movie so much that it stuck with me.
When were you aware that it was Drew Barrymore, and were you watching her reaction the whole time?
Well, not the whole time, but we did check. She was sitting in front of us, and I think we clocked her on the way in and did did you see who that is? And then on the way out, it was very clear, like lights up. She stood up, and we were like, yes, we were correct. That is who that was. But alone.
Right.
At a sci-fi movie.
Yeah.
I thought that
Yeah. She'd done 50 First Dates, and then now she's going by herself.
Yeah. Although she, of course, had been in E.T., so she's not.
Yeah.
She's not averse to science fiction. Obviously.
Yeah, that's true.
Speaking of Spielberg.
Have you ever talked to her about that?
No, I've never met her. I kind of don't want to break the spell.
Yeah.
She represents something talismanic to me about movie going that I don't want to know.
All right. This seems like this should go on the board somewhere, right? It's very pivotal.
Dream screening.
Dream screening is if you were to go back and revisit
okay,
it.
Okay.
Could be a bit of a secret screening where you don't know what's happening. It's also could be the audience award, and the audience could be Drew Barrymore.
Oh my God. Let's do that.
Yeah.
That's an inspired idea.
Yeah, it's one. All you need is one.
But what if she hated it and we don't know? And she's like, I have to see this again?
But it was your favorite. Have you been with a better audience than Drew Barrymore?
Well, it's not ideal to go to the movies and be one of only 3 people in the theater. However, that one is so memorable that I'll allow it.
All right, Sunshine. Putting it up. All right. So up on the board now is Once Upon a Time in the West, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Pulp Fiction, Inglourious Basterds, and Sunshine. Is there a moment, I know you grew up, you loved sports, you wrote music, you wrote film. Is there a part where you're like, movies and this should be my career? Is there a movie that said, hey, there's something in here for me? Or a moment when it was your career that was very important to you?
Sure. I can think of an incident that led to the place where I am now. I mean, like I said, I was editing magazines in New York for about 10, 12 years, and I had been writing about music for a really long period of time. Movies were always my central preoccupation, just personally, but I genuinely think I was a little bit afraid to try to do anything in the world. I didn't think of myself as a pure movie critic. I still don't. I'm very clearly an enthusiast, but not a scholar. I'm in a kind of a middle ground there. And so I think because of that, because I didn't throw myself headlong into it when I was in college or even in high school, I didn't quite know how to crack through. I got a job out here in 2012 at a place called Grantland, which was a small website owned by ESPN. Started working for Bill Simmons. And while I was working there, largely as an editor, I started writing a few film pieces. I was trying to balance reporting and essay writing and figuring out, just sort of like use my own personal taste as a prism through which to cover the world of movies in a way that clearly other people were doing it and had been doing it, but trying to find my own little niche. And Under the Skin was coming out, and so I asked to do a piece on Jonathan Glazer. I spent an afternoon with him around that film. I'd been a huge fan of Sexy Beast and Birth. He's a wonderful guy, really insightful guy. And that was one of the very first A24 movies. And I don't think I fully understood what was happening at that time with the studio, but something was going on. And having done that piece, having felt good about it, having felt good like kind of situating that movie in a history of a certain kind of sci-fi, like The Man Who Fell to Earth style, like a sort of avant-garde, intellectualized, but also mainstream enough that after I wrote that piece, I started pursuing more stories like that. And my boss, Bill, at the time was clearly watching me kind of like doing this basically for free as a sideline to my job. And so we left Grantland, and then about a year later in 2016, started this new company, The Ringer, which is where I work now. And within a year of being there, he was like, you have to have a movie podcast. You spent all your time talking to me about this. You are always annoying me with your interests. And I know you're always at screenings. Like every Friday I'm at one, if not two, one movie a week. And I'm just discovering the New Bev at that time, discovering more rep theaters around the city. So he asked me to host a show where I talked to filmmakers. And I think it was probably that Glazer conversation and how comfortable he was with me, even though I was nervous and kind of fumbling a little bit through my questions because I was really kind of enthralled to, I think, what I perceived to be his intelligence as a director, that got me thinking I should do that. Big Picture has kind of evolved a lot over the years, and it's a little bit of a different animal now, but almost every episode still has a conversation with a filmmaker. It's something I just still really enjoy. So I'm inclined to make Under the Skin one of my picks, because it is kind of a pivotal movie for me in my life.
Where would you think to put that? I mean, secret screening is something that no one knows what they're getting into. It's that. Is it a midnight movie? You have closing night. You can add it. You can move things around.
I like it as a secret screening.
Secret screening.
Yeah. I need something a little nastier for the midnight movie.
Yeah. And it's kind of a secret opening up. You didn't know what you were opening up.
Exactly. Well put. Yeah, that is how I feel.
Hey, do you think those theaters, the Whitman and the Rep, you have such a great understanding of film, but you're also very accessible for people.
Mm-hmm.
You could talk about it. Is it that you had like kind of two temples? There were two places that inspired you at the very beginning that shot you into both directions?
It's a good question. I've thought about that a little bit. I'm very fond of saying high art, low culture as my intersection.
Mm-hmm.
I really, really love heavyweight artists working in kind of on dingy material and elevating that material. That's kind of it's not the only thing that I like, but it's probably the thing that I get most emotionally connected to. And it's probably a little bit of a testimony to my upbringing and some of my feelings about class. And, my dad was a cop, and I always had a pretty complicated relationship with that. And I was really into hip hop as a young kid, and I was trying to figure out like where I fit in the world, like any teenager. I always found that the stories that were kind of on the fringes were more emotionally accessible to me. And I've kind of tried to hold on to that as much as I can, while also acknowledging, like, when you have a job like my job now, you have to go see Fast and the Furious 10 and give it some thought and decide whether or not it's worth people's time and whether or not it's worth my time. You can judge it on its merits and sometimes not underestimate why things appeal to people. And I think that that's a little bit a part of that, like, exploitation movies worked for a very specific reason. They spoke to something primal about people's interests. They went to the movie theaters to feel something specifically. I'm also a huge horror fan. It's the same thing with horror. Like, I'm fond of saying that I'm dead inside, but horror movies bring something out of me as a moviegoer and a movie watcher that's hard to tap into, having seen tens of thousands of movies at this point in my life. I do think of it a little bit strategically, but I come to it naturally, and I want to be able to see a mainstream Hollywood blockbuster on July 1st and be interested in it. And I also want to see a late period Pasolini movie that I've never seen before and be interested in that too. And in theory, for the same reason, that like it switches something on in you. You don't have to intellectualize that much to make it accessible. But I just think movies are such a democratic form of art. They're such an easily understood piece of culture. It's not like music, which feels so technical. If you truly try to unpack it, with movies, it's like, was that actor good? Did that image look good to you? How did the music sound to you? Did it make sense in the scene? Because it's so diagrammatic in that way, there's not a lot of like hurdles to climb. It's just about making sure that you're thinking about things in relatively even terms. And I do try to do that. I do try to consider your highest high art house and your lowest Cineplex, popcorn muncher, like in the same exact terms.
Is this how you end up as a Mets and Jets fan instead of the Giants and Yankees fan?
That's the low culture part. Yeah. I mean, that was gifted to me by my parents, unfortunately, and I can't get out of it, unfortunately. I've thought about this with my kids so much about what I should be giving her, because we're here, and I'm like, you could just be a Dodgers and a Rams fan and be a happy person. That would be an amazing life.
As a Pirates fan, when I tell people that, they go, "Oh, you're like a masochist." They look at me strange.
But Steelers as well?
Yeah, so I at least
have something.
I have some piece
that's
of
nice.
me that's
I don't really have anything. It's been a nice 5 years as a Knicks fan, but I don't really have respite in sports. It is it's character building on a daily basis. And that's another reason why I think I've retreated to movies so much over the years, because I love sports, and I love watching baseball especially. But for when you have an unrewarding baseball day, it's a day ruiner.
Yeah, it's all ruined. It could be 2 days. 2 days sometimes. All right, let's put it up on the board. We're putting up
Under the Skin.
Secret screening.
Secret screening.
We are back. We have Once Upon a Time in the West, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Under the Skin, Pulp Fiction, Inglourious Bastards, and Sunshine. We were just talking about sports. Have you ever gone to a movie that had the feeling of a sporting event? Is there anything that was so raucous, you're like, that reminds me of...
This is going to sound dumb, and I hope you'll roll with me on this, but I vividly remember the energy in the Avengers Endgame screenings. That was a religious experience for people. And I got wrapped up in it too. And I'm pretty down on the Marvel experience in the last 10 years, but that was something that you could tell your kids about. I don't think that I have had many experiences like you often read about the glory days of the new Hollywood and the kind of the emergence of the blockbuster, where the lines around the block for The Exorcist or Jaws, and that almost romantic feeling of people coming out of a movie and then getting right back in line to go see the movie over again. I didn't really feel that in the 90s. There were certainly movies that were huge hits. Titanic was a movie that people saw 8, 9, 10 times in theaters. Endgame, weirdly, as cynical as it is, as a comic book enterprise and the most mainstream 4-quadrant attempt you could make over a 10-year period, in the theater when the movie was happening, it was religious for people. They were making the sounds that you hear in a Pentecostal church. And I cannot deny that. Like, as much as I can look my nose down at a comic book movie that I don't like, I was connected to that experience with all the people who were in there, and I really, really enjoyed myself. I wouldn't put it on a film festival.
Right.
That only happened at that time, on that first weekend when no one knew anything. And that's also increasingly rare, as I feel like withholding information from a movie, a new release, is so difficult now. I'm partially responsible for this as someone who spoils movies for people all the time on a weekly basis. But that did feel unique. I've had my own individual religious experiences watching movies and feeling like touched or moved by something. I'm trying to think of what is
Do you think
the best possible
the Avengers,
example.
that was actually a movie they made that was the actual movie and not like an advertisement for the next movie?
I think that's a big reason why it was that way.
Yeah.
It felt like we had come to the end of something.
Yeah.
And so because of that, we were free to exult.
Yeah.
We were free to scream and rock, so to speak. And most franchise films feel like what you described.
Yeah. And the people are down on the theatrical and the masses at some of these. But you talked about the AMC in Burbank, which is the greatest AMC. I see people in Cinematheque hats, and it just feels like how it was supposed to feel.
It's the Cinephiles multiplex.
Feels like a community for a multiplex.
Mm-hmm.
The Avengers film, it doesn't have to be so cynical. They don't have to go that.
Yeah. It's rare. And I think you can appreciate a movie like that on its own merits, but in terms of the actual it's very rare that a movie like that can make you feel in that way.
Yeah.
So that's a really elevated example of it. But can you recall a time when you felt like everyone was kind of hooting and hollering? I'll tell you. I'll give you one.
Okay.
This is true for every film in this series. The Jackass movies.
Oh.
The Jackass movies in theaters, there is nothing like that. I really like the TV show, and I think the whole project is fascinating and a really like a pop culture artifact that will also likely be studied. But as pure movie going, the idea that there's no narrative structure, that the stars are real people, that it is effectively documentary, to elicit that response in that format, the way that people will groan, scream, cry, and laugh at the same time when watching all of those guys mutilate and annihilate themselves for 100 minutes is fascinating and so fun. And there's a 5th one coming out this summer. I will be there. I am interested. I think it's such a strange and special project, and kind of depraved in a way that I like certain kinds of movies, and yet weirdly it's very commercial. It's something that people have shown that they really, really enjoy. So that is like a slightly different kind of religion that you get in there, but I really like those movies.
It's the opposite of AI.
Yes.
It's the most it is physical pain.
Yes. Handmade destruction.
When did you see the first one?
Must have been in New York.
Those crowds must go crazy when you're.
Yeah. I mean, seeing movies in Brooklyn in the 2000s was a lot of fun. Because it was a very active movie-going audience, and that was a time when it felt like mainstream movie-going was still a part of that. This is just what you do on Friday, which in some cases it feels like that here, but I think it's a little bit of an illusion nationally at times because we're so movie conscious here.
So what was it? And the audiences for Jackass when you saw must have been wild, right?
Yeah. I mean, I'm seeing movies in Brooklyn at that time was a lot of fun, and the audiences were very engaged and vocal. I just remember people were not vomiting in the aisles or anything, but it did give you that this hurts me to watch this in a pleasurable way sensation. And you can feel your friend or your neighbor having that same experience, and people turning mid prank and looking at each other and being like, "Are you fucking kidding me? Like, are they really doing this?" Which I always really enjoyed.
Yeah, you never know. No matter how many movies you've seen, you don't know what's going to happen next.
Yeah, and it's episodic.
Yeah.
They would do a prank.
Yeah.
And then it would just end. And
Yeah.
then they would cut to the next prank, and it would not be part of any kind of linear expectation. So it's not like, oh, well, now the hero gets to go over here. It's just like, okay, well, now Knoxville's over here getting gored by a bull.
They're your adult Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Kinda. You're sensing a trend, I think. Yeah.
You talked about some of the great, it's kind of an illusion here sometimes, but there's so many good theaters in Los Angeles. What city is the best place to see movies?
Ooh, that's a very good question. I think LA in the United States, based on my experience, is far and away the best. I think we have the most options. I think we have the best combination of opportunities to see new films in different formats and lots of repertory, which really matters to me. New York, of course, obviously has a really thriving culture. I was in Chicago last summer and had a nice time at the Music Box. We did a live show there, showed a film. I'm not the world's expert on where the best places to see them, but I have loved seeing films in Paris. I think Paris's perception specifically of American films and how they program. I remember on my honeymoon, my wife and I went to the Cinematheque in Paris, which I believe was the inspiration for the Cinematheque here.
The inspiration, American Cinematheque.
And we saw I Was a Male War Bride, starring Cary Grant, which I hadn't seen before, and had a grand time, just the greatest time. And a movie that I just probably would not have even checked out, but we were just looking for a film that, we knew we weren't going to get American subtitles on any French films that were there, and so we needed to see something we could understand. And it played like gangbusters to the crowd. And it was a really fascinating crowd of college students, tourists, elder people living in the neighborhood. Really robust weeknight screening of a movie that had been made 80 years prior. And so that's a great place to go. I was in Mexico City a couple of years ago. There's also a wonderful Cinematheque there. I don't know if you've ever been to that Cinematheque. It's such a special place. And they had been doing a Hitchcock retrospective at the time.
And it's a beautiful place, right?
The space is architecturally magnificent. There's a museum inside of the Cinematheque that is a lot of fun. There's a truly great gift shop there as well for all the merchandise heads. But yeah, they were doing a Hitchcock program, and my wife and I saw Rebecca and Marnie together.
Wow.
And Hitchcock is one of my wife's favorite filmmakers, and we had a blast. So, I didn't spend a ton of time going to the Cineplexes of Mexico City, but that space in particular is very, very cool.
In France, I think the Cinematheque has a very multi-generational, which I think is healthy. A lot of people are talking about young people getting to go. We need everybody to go. It's what really makes it fun and robust, and it speaks to everybody.
Yeah, and I think making the space inviting is challenging, and it's hard in cities where real estate is really at a premium. But once you get inside of a lobby and you like it in there, when you walk into the Egyptian, it's nice inside the lobby. It is not like I got to kind of race through this dingy, darkly lit room. Like it is, there are places to convene and not just, I'm fond of saying that I find that all movie theaters, I really feel like should be terrariums and not tunnels. Tunnels are something that you walk through and try to get through as quickly as possible while not looking around you. Terrariums are open, and you want to look up and look around and see what's in the space that you're in. And I think the kind of museum culture, the merchandising culture, and the social culture of movie going is really, really important. And there are ways to kind of explore and exploit that in some ways that I think can help movie theaters and just kind of build a deeper relationship to cinephilia and community and all that stuff that really matters to me a lot, because I'm just in movie theaters a lot.
Yeah.
And I want to be happy in those places. I don't want to feel like they're just part of my work.
Yeah. And here in LA, I think everyone knows their own, they have their audience and what they're doing. It's so unique. Each place you go, and they speak to their community. And, none of these theaters are ever against you. We're against the nothing that is coming, and it's it's like a tapestry of great cinemas here.
Yeah. And each place represents something different about their programming and their history and what the vibe is of who goes to the movie theater. And, you can't predict that on a day-to-day basis, but you can kind of encourage style.
Yeah. We have closing night. You mentioned thinking about a midnight movie. You love horror.
Yeah.
Do you want to just slot anything up on the board while you're thinking?
Yeah, let's I had a great experience at the Cinematheque Horrorthon it might have been 3 years ago. You guys played Henenlotter's Frankenhooker.
Mm-hmm.
I love Frank Henenlotter, true New York filmmaker. Frankenhooker, a true Long Island movie.
Yeah.
A perfect midnight movie. And I think it played second. I think it played after Stuart Gordon's Dolls.
Yeah.
Tore the house down. It was so much fun. I love Frankenstein movies in general.
She was great. That actress,
She's
I can't think of her name.
fantastic.
She's unbelievable.
I know. She's so special in that movie. All the performances in that movie are pretty fun.
Yeah.
You know, with Henenlotter, you never really know like what kind of performance you're going to get.
Yeah.
But she has the gaze, and you know, you can feel the Elsa Lanchester kind of coursing through her a little bit. Like she's did her homework. And I think that midnight movies, every 10 minutes there needs to be like a oh shit moment in a midnight movie. You know, like it needs to keep you up. It needs to keep you engaged. And it needs to, I think, kind of rattle your chain about what's acceptable in a movie. A midnight movie that is very elegant and quiet doesn't really make a lot of sense for me.
I'm going right to sleep.
Yes. So is it crazy to put Frankenhooker on the board?
Oh, no, that's a perfect.
Okay.
I think it's also the movie when people see the title, they're like, there's no way this is going to be good to them. And then they watch it and they love it.
No, it's really, really well made.
Yeah.
The makeup effects are really good. It's not the like evil sexist nightmare that you're expecting. It's much like Bride of Frankenstein. It's like an interesting movie about agency and, you know, made in the kind of like grindhousey 80s independent horror movement. So yeah, it's a movie and I just get a kick out of it.
Yeah, we got to give some love to Frank Henenlotter. Midnight movie, Frankenhooker. All right, we've got 2 categories left. We've got the dream screening that we'll get to, and we have closing night.
Okay.
As we've talked through this, is there any film that has made a big impact, and maybe it's one of the Jackasses, or maybe it's something else. Is there a film that has made a huge impact on you that has to go on the Sean Fennessey Film Festival?
Yeah, there is. It probably makes the most sense to do closing night for this movie. It's the first work of classic Hollywood British filmmaking that I think got me more invested in history. When I was a kid, AFI did 100 Years, 100 Movies. And I watched that special on CBS, which is, I believe, a multi-night presentation of their 100 greatest movies up until that point. And I think for a lot of people who were teenagers at that time, that was a kind of a checklist. And you started there and you thought, okay, well, I guess I got to go see The French Connection. I got to see Mutiny on the Bounty. I got to go see these. There's certain movies that like maybe you don't know about that your parents are not telling you. This is in your kid canon. This is the adult canon of American films. I went through that list and watched all those movies. And then I started seeking out other lists, started seeking out, David Thompson lists, and started seeking out Sight and Sound. And the movie that hit the hardest for me when I was going through that period and as a teenager was Carol Reed's The Third Man, which I think is the best movie ever made. And is a movie I frequently cite as my favorite film of all time. And I mentioned that I really like cynical and nasty stories. And I really like storytellers and loquacious characters. And I like hiding the ball. I like when a movie withholds information from you for a very long time. That movie, of course, post-World War II Vienna, you've got this author whose longtime friend, who's also a criminal, Harry Lime, calls him out to Europe to come spend some time with him. He arrives in Europe and finds out that his friend is dead. Or is he? Orson Welles plays the friend. Joseph Cotten plays the author. And it is like the apotheosis of artisans and artists in slightly different fields coming together at the same time. Where you've got Reed, who comes out of this British system. You've got Graham Greene, the author and screenwriter. You've got the incredible zither score that is unmistakable. And you've got Welles at a really, really critical juncture of his career where he has not like washed out yet. He's become frustrated by his inability to get certain things off the ground, and he's taking more acting gigs. And he's captivating as Lime and gives a couple of different kind of monologue moments. The photography in the movie is breathtaking. It is like an all-time classic for cinephiles, and it's not the most original, this is my favorite movie, but it's a movie that I've seen projected probably 5 times. I've owned in every format that I can very easily just turn on at any moment. And I think it also, when you go through like my interest in kind of embittered 70s new Hollywood movies, kind of rough and tumble crime movies in the 90s, Hong Kong cinema, horror movies, even up until today, like my fascination with Alex Garland or Paul Schrader or directors like that who have these really hard-edged views of life. Like, I do think it kind of circles back to that movie. It's a very inciting incident.
It's got set piece, it brings everything. Carol Reed's very underrated.
Very underrated. And I think is like maybe in part because his big Oscar win was Oliver, which is by like not even close to his best movie. But his movies in the 40s and 50s are magnificent.
Odd Man Out, Fallen Idol,
yes,
which we showed on Night Trail. I love. I spoke to John Borman once, and it stuck with me forever. He said like we'd mastered filmmaking at the end of black and white. Those films look so good in black and white. They knew how to light it. They knew how to develop the film perfectly. So it's an excellent choice.
Yeah, it's like that's kind of the culmination of 25 years of industrialized professionals who had kind of cracked something.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of people in their 40s and 50s who are making a living working in service of bigger ideas. So I think that's the height of it.
It's a great closing night. The Third Man. All right, we have one slot left for the Sean Fennessey Film Festival. It is the dream screening slot. You can travel through time and space, do anything. There are no rules. It's the dream screening.
Okay. I think the moment when I would want to be the closest to the center of the movie world is the Cannes Film Festival in '79 for Apocalypse Now. I think that because that is one of the most derided films in production and pre-production in movie history. There was so much press about Coppola. If I were a movie podcaster in the 1970s, I would have built many shrines to Coppola up until that point.
Yeah.
So just in the 70s, you're talking, he's done two Godfathers in the conversation, and this is his follow-up to that trio of movies. Yeah. People were doubting him. More than doubting him. They had assumed it would be a fiasco, and it played brilliantly. And I think I would just want to be there to experience that. I don't know if we have an equivalent of that in modern movie culture, where someone, after having achieved so much, gets to the mountaintop again in that way. I don't even know if that's feasible. Yeah. Obviously, making a movie like Apocalypse Now is not feasible anymore. It just would not be allowed at that scale. But I'm very interested in, we're talking about sports, and I'm really interested in dynasties. And maybe in part because I've never experienced one as a fan. None of my teams have ever had any sustained success ever. But when the Warriors were dominant in the NBA for a stretch, I was really interested in that. I came of age during the Chicago Bulls dominance. We're living through the Los Angeles Dodgers kind of having a mini dynasty. And, film is not sports, but there are comparative points. And someone owning a decade in the way that Coppola did is so interesting to me. And just how that person is talked about and how they're understood and how they're thought about. To be there for that when he does it all over again would be amazing.
Yeah, I don't think there's nothing that compares to it, because normally they tear you down later, but you don't get torn down before it comes up and then immediately shoot up even higher. Almost.
Yeah, it's really only Titanic, I think, is the only comparative point, and I just much prefer Apocalypse Now to Titanic. But just the idea of and also it being a festival film and an awards contender and all of those things, in addition to a big commercial success, in addition to being this really meditative and strange exploration of the self. That most big movies like that are not allowed to be. Are not allowed to be as philosophical and existential as that movie is. I actually saw that movie at the Egyptian at the 70mm Festival last year, and as transcendent as ever, as beautiful as ever, as audacious as ever. I think I do feel like I missed a lot being as obsessed with the 70s cinema as I am, and I wish I could have been there for a lot of moments throughout that decade, a lot of times when people were seeing something for the first time and having a feeling. A lot of what I do now professionally is like, okay, Project Hail Mary just came out. This feels like something.
Yeah.
What is this something, and why is it resonating? That's something I'm really interested in exploring, is not just why does it matter to me, but why did this hit, but this other thing didn't hit? And a movie like Apocalypse Now penetrating the mainstream while also retaining a kind of aesthetic and critical greatness is very, very appealing to me.
Yeah, that would have been, you would have done so many shows on all the films before, so many shows on how it's a disaster, and now Harvey Keitel's not there, and what's going on.
Exactly.
And then the triumph. So you would have been there, you'd go to the screening, and you also be at the press conferences and see that
The
whole
whole
thing.
nine, yeah.
It's a great pick.
Would have been fun, right?
That would have been really fun.
Thanks.
All right, Apocalypse Now at Cannes. And with Apocalypse Now, the Sean Fennessey Film Festival is fully programmed. Sean, would you like to walk us through your festival?
Sure, let's do that. So on opening night, we're showing Sergio Leone's Once Upon a Time in the West. For our double feature, later that evening, I suppose, Pulp Fiction and Inglourious Bastards, a twin showing of Quentin Tarantino's movies. For the family matinee, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the original from 1990. The audience award film will be Danny Boyle's Sunshine. My midnight movie is Frank Henenlotter's Frankenhooker. My dream screening would be Apocalypse Now at the Cannes Film Festival. My secret screening is Jonathan Glazer's Under the Skin. And the closing night film, my favorite movie of all time, The Third Man.
Amazing. I'd go to every single one of these. It sounds like a blast. Thank you so much for being here, Sean, and programming the Sean Fennessey Film Festival.
Thanks for having me.
All right, the box office is closed. The American Cinematheque podcast is produced and edited by Victoria Alejandro. Mike Cuenca edits and produces our video. Stephanie Cervantes is our marketing manager. Our theme music is by Gelberg. And I'm your host, Grant Moniger. Thanks to everyone who makes this show possible. The American Cinematheque operates the Aero, Egyptian, and Los Feliz 3 theaters in Los Angeles with programming nationwide. The American Cinematheque is a 501c3 nonprofit. If you'd like to hear more, donate, become a member, or program your own AC Podcast Film Festival, head over to AmericanCinematheque.com.